This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany. I'm joined by my co-host Harris Faulkner and Emily Compagno, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, and in the center virtual seat, Fox News contributor, Fox Nation host, and retired Marine bomb tech Joey Jones. Happy Monday, everyone. The popular streaming service adding the warning in an attempt to curb recent calls to censor and remove Joe Rogan, who they have a $100 million multi-year deal with. The popular host of the Joe Rogan Experience has faced growing criticism after interviews with skeptics of the COVID-19 vaccines. Backlash began earlier this month when nearly 300 medical professionals wrote an open letter requesting for the podcast to be removed. And now music artists such as Neil Young and Joni Mitchell taking their songs off the platform in protest. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who also have a lucrative deal with Spotify, are also pressuring the company. Rogan breaking his silence on the cancel campaign just yesterday.
The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. I'm interested in telling the truth. I'm interested in finding out what the truth is. And I'm interested in having interesting conversations with people that have differing opinions.
Joe Rogan, the most powerful part of his 10-minute response to all of this was this portion where he talked about so-called misinformation. Let's listen.
8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you would be removed from social media. They would ban you from certain platforms. Now, that's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media. Now, that's openly and repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek.
Leslie, you know who's not bringing it? Who's not bringing it is a guy named Prince Harry. Let's take a listen to this flashback.
I don't want to start sort of going down the First Amendment route because that's a huge subject and one of which I don't understand because I've only been here for a short period of time. But you can find a loophole in anything. Laws were created to protect people. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I got so much I want to say about the First Amendment. I still don't understand it, but it is bonkers.
Of course they don't understand it. They wanted to own us.
So, right. He has concerns about this Spotify, and this is the guy who's anti-First Amendment, Leslie.
You know what? I'm probably going to get canceled. By the way, before I come on TV and after I'm done, people tell me Fox should fire me on a daily basis. Check out my Twitter feed. No. So Harris, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. So here's the thing, okay?
I wear it like a badge.
I don't really listen to anything that Harry and Meghan say. So sorry. Since they jumped the pond and won't let the baby see Grandma, it bothers me just a bit. But that aside, as a talk show host for over 30 years, I have an opinion on this. Okay, I have had the opportunity to interview some really uncomfortable people, Holocaust deniers, grand wizards of the KKK, and I made the decision not to. One, because I'd probably get fired at one point on the radio stations I worked at, but another because I always felt I had a responsibility that my listeners could be unlike Joey, because you did a great thing. You said, I take it with a grain of salt. So do I, but some people don't. And therein lies the danger. Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and possibly Foo Fighters and other artists have a right to put their music on whatever platform they want. I don't like censorship, but I also don't like information that could be dangerous if people don't take it for what it is, an alternate opinion or a grain of salt, and follow that to the letter.
My first assignment as a journalist at WNCT in Greenville, North Carolina, was to go that first week to a KKK rally. And people actually talked with me, which nobody in my newsroom would believe that would have happened. I'm glad I did those interviews. We're Americans. We aren't always going to think the same. Maybe something in the exchange of those conversations would bring forth even better information and conversations. You can't cut it off at the point where you think people aren't grown enough to hear it. That's or you don't like it.
What's dangerous about the truth?
I disagree when it comes to our health. I disagree when it comes to somebody. Look, Joe Rogan's laughing all the way to the bank, right?
Did you hear what I said? I went to a rally in this skin.
I heard you.
Right? People gave me interviews. Like,
Yeah, but the KKK weren't giving you medical advice, Harris. They weren't giving the general public
No, they were
medical
giving me some
advice
life
on
advice at
television
one
or
point,
radio.
and that certainly involved my health. But I hung in there, and those interviews were watched. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that those should be stickered either. Of course, I'm so old now in my career that, you know, they can't really sticker them if they could find them.
I'm still in this nightmare that I wish I never had, full of rage and anger, hurt and sad, torn. Although I gained thousands of blue brothers and sisters, I'm the loneliest without you. I know you're looking at me and beside me telling me I could do this, and I'm trying. Trust me, I am. But I didn't prepare for this.
Heartbreaking words from Detective Jason Rivera's widow. The 22-year-old officer and his partner Wilbert Mora were killed a little over a week ago, shot in an ambush as they responded to a mother's call for help in Harlem. The NYPD was out in full force on Friday as the city paid one final goodbye to its fallen officer. But not everyone was supportive. One New York City actress was annoyed that streets were closed for Rivera's funeral. Watch.
We do not need to shut down most of lower Manhattan because one cop died for probably doing his job incorrectly. They kill people who are under 22 every single day for no good reason, and we don't shut down the city for them.
Joey Jones, she's now a former actress as she was fired from her theater company for that. As well, a Coney Island teacher was subsequently terminated after he put on an Instagram story, quote, May 30th, 2020, NYPD SUV drives into a crowd of protesters, and then he put a photo of this funeral and said ideal conditions for reciprocity. He tried to backtrack, but he was let go. His school saying, look, you are held to a higher standard of public service, and we stand with our officers. And Leslie, you know, ambushes on law enforcement have spiked 300% in the last year. There is a direct correlation between this social vilification backed by elected officials and the deaths of these officers, Leslie.
As a liberal, I'm a pacifist. I am against any threat of violence or any threat towards someone's life. I also was raised that you don't speak ill of the dead, if nothing else, in respect for their family. We heard the widow of that officer. Look, the President of the United States, the majority of my party, myself included, do not support defund the police, and do know that the majority, overwhelming majority of our police officers do a great and a dangerous job. I think that the liberal theater company, thank you, Joey, for pointing these things out, and the liberal school board did the right thing. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about liberal or conservative. This is about the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. It is wrong to speak so harshly of somebody who was killed in the line of duty, if nothing else, for their family, especially for their children. It's hurtful, and again, it's harmful, and it's unacceptable. I'm glad that these people lost their jobs over their remarks.
Leslie, I agree with your point of view, but respectfully, I disagree that the party feels the same way. I think for the last 2 years now, we have seen an absolute wave of defunding the police under guise of reallocating resources. We've seen an absolute acceptability of vilifying these guys on social media, on podcasts, on radio, and the like.
Let's talk about resources. You have $138 million that the DOJ is sending to local law enforcement to assist. You have the president who is meeting with the mayor of New York, and not just
it's about local resources.
I'm sorry, Leslie, that's
and the president is going to New York to talk about not just gun violence, but to allocate more money to put more cops on the street in these cities, in these states, in these towns. I wrote about this last week at Fox News, FoxNews.com. You can't just have this be about gun control. I keep saying it to my party, and I think the president actually must have read the article, because that's what he's doing. He's not only putting more police on the street, but he's putting more money into programs to help communities combat violence, not just focus on legislation taking more guns, illegal guns especially, off the street.
Can I say one thing about that? With his legislation, though, it said you can use this money for those purposes. Now the president has to come back, now all these months later that things have gotten worse in mostly Democrat-led cities, and put more force behind that. Please use this money for those things. But Leslie, you and I both know you cannot replace an officer who's been around for 20 years with what that money will buy in an environment where it's hard to recruit cops right now. I mean, the dollars are not the same. The dollars are a suggestion, but it's the actual getting out there as the President of the United States and not just disavowing, but strongly saying, do not tear down the cops in America. We need them.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, and he's not doing that. And he hasn't done that. Leslie, if I could just say this, I rode down the streets of D.C. in the summer of 2020 after those protests turned violent, and I saw on building after building, ACAB, all cops are, and I won't use that curse word on television, sprayed over the Veterans Affairs sign. Well, what was President or then candidate Biden doing at the time? He was asked, do you want to redirect funding from police officers? He said back, absolutely. So he's played footsie with this defund the police movement. He hasn't called out Minneapolis and Los Angeles and Baltimore. He was asked point blank, Jen Psaki on this network, hey, are you going to call out the liberal DAs? And she said, no, we will not. So they have done nothing to stop this crime wave. And you say throw a little money, talk about it a year into the administration. I'm sorry. That is not an adequate response.
That's right. Putting forth legislation and meeting with the city's mayors in order to see what the problem is and to proceed in those individual cities, because the problem isn't the same across the board when it comes to crime. Los Angeles and New York are two different cities. So I think that
their DAs are very similar, though.
Right. Everything out of this White House is misguided.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a year in, Leslie. This is the #2 issue to voters. So all of a sudden, he's discovered the crime wave and is going to go to New York City. I'm sorry. You've had 13 months and you're just
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Right.
Wait, the White House has a rebuttal. After this footage of illegal immigrants being flown or bussed around the United States popped. A White House official tells Fox News, quote, there are no such things as secret flights, end quote. KT told me that you have to have a secure border in order to be an effective member of NATO. It's interesting because we are now stepping into the border countries around Ukraine right now, Leslie, as Russia is perched to invade, even though they say, oh, that's ridiculous. So they put 127,000 troops there. Like, what is that, for a walk in the daisies or something? But the reason I say that is, doesn't our own border have to be secure at this point?
Yes, but we also have to look at the data. CPB's own numbers show that arrest and deportations were at record high in 2021. And this goes beyond any federal position, any president. I said this during the Trump administration as well. This falls into the lap of Congress again and again. If we don't fix our asylum laws are one of the reasons the people come here. It is the carrot that these rabbits, if you will, come to the border because they need to be at our border. They need to be here to file for asylum. That needs to be changed, and only Congress can do that.
You just gave us what the Vice President and the President have been looking all over the place for, a root cause. The problem is it doesn't immediately fix the problem that we are having.
That's been the root cause for 27 years, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in control of House, Senate, or the White House.
Right now. And when we took him live, he was saying, you know, first we're going to look at really why people are trying to leave those countries and come to this country. I mean, you just said it. So now can we work on the problem of what happens when they actually get here? And some of them are not here for those good causes. Some of them are committing further crimes than just being here illegally in the first place. There is a line to stand in and do it the right way. They don't want to do that. All right, we got to go. You know, Leslie and I could talk like this all day. Okay, coming up. The GOAT. Is he or is he not still going to play football? The sports world was on fire over the weekend after ESPN's top NFL reporter said the 7-time Super Bowl champion was retiring after 22 seasons. The story was off and running. But Brady's dad says no final decision has actually been made. And of course, we haven't heard from Tom Brady himself. His team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, say it's news to them. His agent pushed back on the story. Some reporters apparently didn't go to the source. Wow. Leslie.
Well, I'm from Boston, and we have a little team called the New England Patriots. Maybe you've heard of them. And when Tom left us for you, Kaylee, we burnt our Brady jerseys. And a lot of people in Boston blamed the wife. Right? Go figure. Blame the woman. Blamed her for the move. They said she liked warm weather, being from Brazil in South America. No joke. And a lot of people mad that he wouldn't go that one more Super Bowl with the Patriots. But Tom Brady did say say prior to winning the Super Bowl in New England before he went to Tampa, he did say he wanted one more Super Bowl win. He did have that. Now he has no more wins possibly ahead of him, so I think that was the speculation. But from a journalistic perspective, very bad. You can't cut and paste. You got to do your diligence. You go to the source. You find out the facts. You don't trust the other sources that are putting that out there unless you've done your homework and checked it out yourself.
Bay, there's a new fit felon or burglar bay stealing hearts. British police posted a warrant alert for this convicted burglar, and it was quickly overrun with thousands of comments from admirers. Literally so many, the police had to shut it down. They shut down their Twitter. They shut down Facebook. Some of my favorites was one woman saying, if I find him, can I keep him? Another saying, did he break into houses or did he break hearts? Of course, you remember Jeremy Meeks, the original jail bay, who has now gone on to a successful modeling career. So Leslie, maybe that is what is in store for Fit Felon or Burglar Bay, #so hot.
I don't know, and I hope not, because, well, first, you can't judge a book by its cover. But personally, ladies, and Joey, I'm waiting to hear Joey's opinion on this guy. But personally, ladies, I like my men with a little color and no rap sheet, so I'll pass on this one.
Joey, I don't mind a conviction. I don't mind it.
Wow.
Not at all. No problem. Joey.
A little color and no. I love that, Leslie. That's pure honesty right there.